Because of the pandemic, you have witnessed an increased interest for university studies, as well as a greater need for further education and lifelong learning. In your opinion, what are the university's responsibilities to accommodate this increased interest, and what type of government support would be needed to fulfill those responsibilities?
Okay, thank you so much. And I would really like to share my my screen because I prepared a little bit of a presentation. So thank you so much for having me to discuss this. I think perhaps that I might have misunderstood a little bit of the focus of the question, more focusing on the need for education and lifelong learning by society, and not necessarily inside of the university, and what the university's responsibilities are for that. And so that's what I'm going to answer, but then I can take questions on the other aspects also. But I think that I started to, when starting to think about this, I, let's see here, I just need to move a little bit of things out of the, so there we go. I mean, we have responsibilities of education, and the long-term overall responsibilities that we have as a university, of course, is to provide excellent higher education to the individual, and by that strengthening society by providing education or educated individuals to build knowledge, of course. But this last part here is that we have the responsibility to meet societal needs for competence development and for further education. And that's, in Sweden, is part of our task given by the government to fulfill, so to say. What we are in right now is more of a short-term crisis-related situation, and what responsibilities we have now. And I see it as our main responsibility is, of course, to provide our students with good distance education. And we're going to discuss that more during this afternoon. But do we also have the responsibility to support pandemic-affected individuals with short or longer education, and to relieve society during the ongoing pandemic of providing education for people who are laid off or in unemployment? So that's really how I understood the question, and what I'm going to say a little bit about. And I would then like to show you a little bit about the complexity of that question. At Chalmers, we have a number of different educational formats, as you do on the other universities. We have primarily the program educations at bachelor and master degree level, but we also have a technical preparatory year. We have the possibility to follow courses on the programs, but outside of them, so to say. MOOCs, and also commissioned education that is tailor-made for companies that commission such educations. And our traditional target groups: students, alumni, public, and companies and public sector. And we have something for everyone, and the formats are quite corresponding to the needs of the target groups. But what happens right now is that we get new target groups. We have students who finish their educations and want to stay on because they don't find any jobs after this summer. We will have, at least in Sweden, and I think everywhere, we have many people who are temporarily laid off. We have increasing unemployment, and we also have a lot of people thinking that it's a good idea to get a technical education, to retrain, to get a updated technical education. The companies and public sector is very much less a target group right now. They are not in the situation of having money enough to pay for education for their employees. So what does that happen? What happens to our picture here? Well, it gets a bit messy. There's a lot of possibilities here where we could provide education for a lot of different types of situation. And how does this then affect the university to have this increased complexity to adhere to or respond to? I think that we need to see that there are a number of gains in increasing the type of education that we can do. It's not only gains for society in the form of increased educational level of the population, which of course is very good, and less negative effects from unemployment. But for the university, I would say that this gives us an opportunity to broaden our recruitment, to enrich our environments for students and teachers. We get students that do not necessarily have the traditional background to doing university studies. And we could get a closer contact with industry, having people from the industry doing education with us. Hopefully, this would mean that we would get more resources for education development. When we develop new education for lifelong learning formats, we could also use the same resources for educating or for developing all our education. But that brings into the risks, and the competition for resources is, I think, the main risk that we have here at Chalmers, that we have a limited amount of teachers and a limited amount of time for teaching. And if we are going to do more teaching, we need to change our methods, which we are doing right now with going distance, so to say. But we also need more money. Another risk is that it builds a lot of administration to have new methods for examinations and for administrative methods, I'm thinking, and admissions and so on. It's economically uncertain, and there's a risk for us rapidly changing our focus in education if we don't take care of that. So my answers to the question, this is not my last slide, but my answers to the questions are, I think we should expand towards lifelong learning, but I think we should do it with caution, not too quickly, retaining the quality and the integrity of the work that we already do. So we cannot hurry in meeting the demands of the society. We have to focus on higher education, of course. This is our focus. We should not be educating at other levels just because we have teachers and we have perhaps resources. And we should be aware of the resource dilution so that we keep quality in the program educations that we do. I send a little bit of what should I say? Well, a letter to the government. We need more funding to expand our basic educations in order to get more positions or more seats on the education so that we can educate more young people. It's not that distant education is cheaper, it's more expensive, at least to start with, and we need more funding for that. We also need more funding for reshaping the existing educations into different formats so that we can use different formats to educate different groups of students. We need to see that there will be diverse needs ahead, and that might go also for our program educations, that they might also be diversing into other types of formats. Funding for MOOCs and MicroMasters, and this last part for Sweden, please, some less administrative complexity is what I would like to ask my government for. I don't know what it's like at the other universities for that. So that's a little bit of take home from what I wanted to say about lifelong learning and university responsibility.